I've updated my slide deck to make it more succinct.
Cool.
So with 6 minutes, so I can go until 9:25. Can we skip? If I start at 9:19.
Yeah, I will go ahead and set the timer too, my friend. Now, did you send me your slide decks or do you have
I
your
did
slide
not.
decks on you? Okay.
No, I have it. I'm
He's
gonna
set
screen
up,
share.
you're
Okay.
you're set up as a co-host also so that you can share your presentation.
Exactly.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So can we just say 9:26?
I will say 9:26, my friend.
Perfect. All right. Well, everybody, good morning. I apologize about the video. I love to be on video, but a lot of you have seen me prior to this. So basically, I'm a tech guy, .NET developer, C Sharp. Did a lot of LAMP over the years. BS IT management was my choice. Worked for a lot of companies. Worked for law enforcement, fire department here, and family's been in Northwest for about 50 years in Seattle. My father was a criminal defense attorney. Came here on the brain drain to build a country, and so before I was born, and so I'm going to basically just present myself, introduce myself. I'm not selling anything like the rules state. And just I have a few areas where I would like feedback on how I can better build um, in the direction that I plan to go. So without further ado, so Petra is in Seattle, Washington. We do a lot, but we focus on a few strong areas. We build MVCs. It's really not MVCs, but MVC ARs, so with actions and routers. We also do a lot of hardware, so we're not just involved in software, but we also do meaningful um, activity that does increase GDP and actually build something rather than just contribute to the service economy. Uh, so this is a little bit about me. Services include .NET Windows application development. So basically, we have templates set up to launch. We just commonly applications we build on Windows Server 2012 R and up. Last application we built was for Windows Server 2019, and it supported about 10 to 15 workstations and etc. Server and security system builds. We've been called in a lot to build security systems. So we've had a lot of funny, quote unquote, funny activity in Seattle, Everett, etc. around. And, a lot of communities that were prior to COVID were considered very safe. We've had a lot of quote unquote funny activity around there. So people have asked me to install a lot of cameras and things like that. We don't use Wi-Fi cams, which can be hacked, which the hackers watch you. We use cabled, with 50, the copper is guaranteed for 50 years. And we install those systems. We build them on a web server. So instead of downloading a Chinese app and have absolutely nothing against China or anything, but some hackable app that we actually you build your own. You have your own web server at your business, and that's how you view through that app. Um, so server and security system builds, we do that, and then we have our own suite of software products. So uh, a number of needs that I've found in the industry, uh, you know, holes in the process model and in the as-is model workflow. We fill those gaps. We try to automate and remove labor as much as possible and extraneous expenses as much as possible. Increase income and decrease costs is our goal when we build our own software. I've been presenting my marketing software here, but it needs some work. I thought it was ready for prime time, but I've gotten some very, excuse me, gotten some very good feedback on developing the UI much further. So that's actually still in the works, but I have some other software that's very, very successful. I'm happy with it. So it's just little past projects that we've done over the last few years. Windows 10 applications, server applications. Um, we do a lot of the other networking. So people invite us to networking events and we don't come. And the reason we don't come into networking events because we don't want to. What that means to us is we're going to have to show up and install a bunch of Cat 5 and layer 1, layer 2, and run your switches And so that's what networking means to us. So we don't come to the networking events. We don't want to do that. So, but I will do that for 1MC, and I actually see myself contributing, and I want to give back to 1MC, just because it's just so positive and fun, and I want to contribute. Um, so tech support for cities, various cities around. I won't name them. Police around us. I won't name them. Fire department, and then tech support for 2 law firms. We still do that. Private school in Linwood still do that, and then companies big and small. We've got a number of people that trust us, and we support them, and they support us, and we love them, and they love us. We did develop some electronic products for automotive, barcode scanner for auto recon, where they bring in these huge transports from Odessa, Manheim, blah, 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 400 car inventory, and so how they could manage that better. Mapped it all out on their computer screens, the browser, so they're visually seeing their lot from a bird's eye view, blah, blah, blah. And so we built that. We also, for older cars, automobiles, for like the Datsun Zs. So actually, we built with so much smarter than me. Together we built a chip that's no longer manufactured for that car. So we were able to get that customer's car running by actually manufacturing these things in the U.S. Very big deal for those and who are aware of that need right now. And then I don't know how many dozens of websites I've built. You've all probably built, so et cetera, et cetera. So I basically talked about this is some of our other applications that we've developed other than the marketing application, which I pretty much did on my own. So the barcode scanner was a big deal. Plugs into vAuto provision and some very useful software. We also do SFTP backup that anyone can employ at their company. Kind of bypasses third party, these Carbonite type services. The reason that came up was because the information was so sensitive at a lot of the companies that I'm affiliated with that we didn't want someone in another office viewing that information. So this information exists on the company server, web server, and then an off-site server. Often they use a web host. And then, so my time is actually already up. A little bit about me, basically everything I said, IT guy, grew up in Seattle, and I'd rather go running than make PowerPoint presentations, Matt.
Noted.
And then I say, Ibidia. Boom. You have all been porky pigged. All right.
Awesome.
Great,
and I love. Thank you, Syed. And I loved your networking joke. That was a good one. I've never heard that one before.
There's another one that people haven't heard is where does Syed go to the bathroom? The IP address.
That's funny. Okay. That could have gotten really bad. All right, perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Syed. So let's all give Syed a virtual round of applause. You can shake your hands. You can do whatever gesture you want. Give him some kudos. Thank you, Syed. So now we're going to shift into the Q&A portion, and I'm going to demonstrate how that works. I'm going to raise my hand so you can see my hand is up, and that means I'm in queue. So if you have a question for Syed, or you are thinking about something you want to ask him, right? Maybe it's about his presentation. Maybe it's a curiosity you have about his plans for his business. Maybe you got some questions about how he's going to market himself, or who his ideal customers are, or anything that you think would be helpful for you to understand what he's up to, but also for him to gain some insight. A great question, well asked, can always give feedback to people, to help them unlock their potential and do what they need to do, right? So I'm going to start off with my favorite question. Syed, we all as business owners have big plans for the year ahead, right? And there's usually a couple of big things that we want to accomplish for our business. So what's the one big thing that you would like to accomplish this year for your business?
So thank you, Matt. The one big thing I would like to accomplish this year for my business is really, as naive it sounds, maybe as selfish as it sounds, is really to expand it and get more good people on board that we can help, and we can support and feel good about it, and they, support us and feel good about it. And just that's it. That's as naive and shallow as that may sound.
It's simple and clear. Thank you. Expanding the business. Awesome. All right. Who has other questions for Syed? It can be about his sales strategy, his marketing strategy. Maybe you can ask clarifying questions about how he plans to expand his business. Dan, I see your hand is up. Go for it.
Yes, I was just curious as far as it seems like a very diverse schedule of offerings as far as you're doing a lot of different things. I think networking and software development and security, and a lot of organizations, those are different people or even different departments within the company, depending on the size of the organization. And so if you have a client that says, hey, I need technical services or IT services, how do you guys, determine what they should be focused on, or what are the services that you're going to provide them? Like, do you have a process around that, or?
Yes, of course. That's an excellent question. Thank you, Dan. So it is diverse. So a lot of these projects are honestly working ourselves out of a job. So once we set up a security system, we walk away. There's usually on a security system, it's an install. There's usually not any kind of monthly residual income that comes from that. And also a lot of the applications that we build, et cetera, we install it, we build it, and we walk away. So I think that helps it make it much more manageable. As far as kind of our ongoing support, we have a little bit of a different relationship, different understanding with them. But as far as the offerings, it's not as if it's not that we're doing 3 different things 40 hours a week. It's that these are kind of our core competence. These are our core competencies, and we implement them and basically just leave.
Cool.
So I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And Syed, I see that you had a question for the group. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's hear Dale's question.
Thank you, and thank you, Syed. Really appreciate you presenting this morning. One of the things I was curious about is a little bit related to what Dan had asked, but my question is around, as Dan mentioned, you do have quite a broad schedule of offerings there. I was curious if in this year, based on your experience with those previous efforts, is there a certain focus that you intend to take your company on it, and are there maybe a couple of those that you want to see more of your growth in, as opposed to others, or others that you might even consider that you may not want to do anymore?
Yes, so I am. So as far as thank you, Dale. As far as getting away from some of the services, the security systems, I think a lot of people already have very good ones already, and so that market is, for good reason, is kind of closing up for the entire industry, and that's a good thing. Means more security, and we need that. So I'm focusing more on software development. So I'm focusing more specifically on Windows Server application development. I have a niche there. A lot of people don't want to do that hard, heavy lifting, and that's, I think, where people will find me very useful. As far as the website stuff, if someone needs it, we've got that stuff pretty much resolved, and we don't have any difficulty implementing that, but that's far and few between. Mostly friends and family ask for that stuff, but I think that as far as focusing this year I'm going to be focusing more on some applications that I intend to develop that are used on a LAN and implemented on Windows Server.
Great, thank you. John, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so Syed, thanks for the presentation. Very informative. I think what you're hearing from several of us is really about the the diversity of items is very trying to get our heads around sort of what it is explicitly you're offering is I think we're trying to get it around now. I actually worked at Microsoft for many years, and I actually was the original developer of Microsoft Web Server IS 1.0. One of the things that we did for IS, because differentiation, and what's the one or two things that really differentiates you that you hang your hat on. For IS early on, it was about performance. So we're going to be the fastest web server on the face of the planet. And so that's what we did. We've done all of our work towards. We did special kernel level optimizations. We did a massive amounts of performance testing, and our goal was to be the fastest web server out there, because there's MWAX, there was the W3C, there's a whole bunch of other web servers that were kind of bubbling up around there, and then eventually that evolved into then like a rich application platform with like ASP and then .NET, other things like that. But originally it was really about just one or two things, and that really led the charge about what we were trying to be, and really clarified for us what should we be spending working on. So that'd be perhaps one thing to consider is even if you are doing one of a plethora of things, like I do photography and I lead with headshot and event photography, but I also do on the side car photography. I do other things too, but I don't actually advertise with it. I lead with the one, and then if these other things happen to come about, I will do them. But I don't actually advertise those because I want to be very clear what is that I do. You know, I do headshot, I do event photography really in the corporate space. That's really what I focus on. So that'd be one thing, is can you come up with a sales pitch which is much more focused, and you can do other stuff, but lead with one or two things that you really do. Because when you say server applications, that's a tremendously large field. I don't know. I can't help you find customers because it's too broad. That's one advice a BNI guy gave me once, is that to help you find customers, you have to be able to describe what is your ideal customer. And a server application developer is just too broad for me to help you say, oh, I know Joe is looking for a database application for his law business. So that'd be perhaps one thing to consider is how to get precise. You can help people find your ideal customer in the networking space.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I mean, so as far as sales pitch, I would, number one, thank you. And yes, so the offerings that I offer, I'm presenting more myself rather than a sales pitch. I was told to avoid using a sales pitch approach. So if I was to demo a product or demo my skill set as to why I should be the right one for a project, I would approach it differently. And along the lines of what you said is speed, performance. Obviously, those play a very big factor in any application for Windows Server. So as far as Windows Server, we've done automotive applications. Of course, database, we prefer MySQL, PHP, MyAdmin if it's on the web, et cetera, et cetera. So, and if it was a sales pitch and for a specific need, I would present it as that. As far as presenting myself and more of an introduction to the community, I'm just presenting kind of my skill set, what I'm capable of doing, my past projects of what I've already done and where people have found me useful. Had I known that this to present it more as a sales pitch of showing my value in that way, I would have certainly done that. So Windows Server applications, what I mean by that, the last one we implemented was a marketing application that basically just simplifies a lot of the rote tasks. It actually eliminates a lot of the rote tasks that were done with marketing for this organization. They found it very useful. Another one was another one that we implemented was for an organization that did not want to use much IT support. So once they didn't want this whole break fix type setup. They wanted, and so they brought me in to make a lot of the problems go away, and we resolved that. We looked at their setup, and we also developed a software program for them. We replaced some of their cabling and things like that, old cabling that was causing their machines to break over and over again, etc. We resolved their issues, and then we set up an application where they can click just one button and solve a lot of their needs. I'm also developing another application, which is a security application that's going to be very useful. And I'm going after solar winds, and I'm going after some of these other uh, IP scan and some of these Radmin old technologies that we've been using in the US for 20 years. And if I knew specifically that I was presenting as a sales pitch, I would have probably focused more on the value of those things, of those. What I was told today to present just kind of as an introduction to myself into the community, who I am, meet your neighbor kind of thing. That's how I approached this today. So I just wanted to show who I am, what I can do. That law enforcement has supported me. Police and support. And I also have a question for the community.
Go for it.
So, um, so I one of the things about the community. So, bear with, I think this person. So, I've always been like an approved vendor around the area. I've always enjoyed a lot of respect, and lately I've had some very challenging issues come up as far as my reputation. 90% of it being untrue. And I've noticed that that's actually impacted a lot of my relationships. And it all happened in the workplace. That was the beginning of it. So my challenge is kind of how I can reintegrate into society after something like that happens. Like somebody suffers from libel, somebody from a jealous coworker, or somebody. I worked as a middle manager, if that says enough. And so really, I've come up against some very interesting people. I've always enjoyed a very good reputation, and I'm finding myself feeling very ostracized from my own community. And my question to the community: how should I reintegrate? Do I need to hire? I have an attorney friend that's, he was a judge in Seattle. He's retired now, but I mean, should I go about cleaning my name, or what should I do? I need to reintegrate. Need to be approved vendor again. I'd like to go on base. I'd like. I mapped a fort. I won't say which one. They had a lot of unidentified. There's a cemetery there, and I mapped. We found a lot of where the headstones should be, and we went and placed headstones on the deceased. So I'd like to have that respect back. So I want to get advice from all of you or any of you on how I should go about reintegrating myself into society.
Got it. Thank you, Syed. Yeah, I'll give you my response, and we have about 5 minutes left, so we can maybe round robin on that if anybody has any feedback. And thank you for that question. I don't know the details of the situation to be explicit, but I can tell you that there's sort of two things that come to mind. One is actions speak louder than words, right? So it's like, how do you show up in the space? How do you interact with people? How do you lead with kindness and generosity, right? And being responsive and communicative and being present, right? And so that's the action you can take in these relationships. And you can't. There are people that will be mad at you regardless of what you say and how you do it, and regardless of who you are. And you can't change everybody's minds. And some people just love being fixed on their point of view, no matter what you say. And forgive them and forget them. It's kind of the mentality I would take around that one. But I also think that when something like that happens, and I won't speak for everybody, but I know I've had some experiences in my past that I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right, and there's something uncomfortable about this, and I had sort of feelings about how it might impact my reputation or my relationship to people. The truth is the people who are with you regardless, right? And so know who your allies are and continue to invest in those relationships. But also think about, there's a funnel, and this is a tip for everybody. We talk about building trust, right, and building community inside of the container of 1 million cups through this know you, like you, trust you funnel. And so in order to actually in order to cultivate trust, people need to get to know you. They need to get to understand you. They need to get to appreciate you. And you need to also do the same with them. And so as you interact with people, and it's one thing inside of the 1 Million Cups community, but it sounds like you're speaking about a particular sector or a group of people. And I don't know anything about that group of people, demographically speaking, and what their sort of mentality or vibe is. But if you look at that group of people and say, okay, who in that community do I know? And then how can I begin to move down that know you, like you, trust you funnel with them so that I can cultivate those relationships? And then, you pick a handful of people, and then over time, those people will become advocates for you, right? And so I think that's my feedback. Anybody else have any words of wisdom for Syed as we wrap up the Q&A portion of our conversation today? And go ahead, John.
Yeah. So just if traditionally with artists, invariably there's somebody who's going to bash you online or whatever. Typically the wrong move is to respond to them. Typically, as long as they're not, they're not actively poisoning a particular well, or there's a whole legal thing, which I'm not addressing at all, but generally, just politely acknowledge there was this year, I wish this person well, and move on. And don't dwell on that, because there will be people who aren't going to like you, like stuff. And so one thing to be careful is don't get wound about. If somebody says something about you online, the worst thing you do is start picking a fight with them online, and so just like, great, move on, and don't keep on reopening, because that just causes more angst for you. And causes probably just more energy around that, and just again, it exposes it more and more, which you probably don't want. And I don't know the situation, don't know that applies here, but that it's an easy trap to fall into. It's like, I am right, you're wrong, doesn't matter.
I highly appreciate this. That's, I think, more than I need. And thank you, John. And you're very senior in a respectable way, and very, I respect you immensely right off the bat. And thank you, Matt. And so the demographic is, I think, for lack of a better word, not to introduce any negativity into this beautiful conversation, but jealous people. So that's anybody. That's any demographic. So, so I do want to say one thing. My name, some people say Syed. My name is Syed, Syed. Syed, like say it, like if you just say it, but they replace the T with the D. So Syed is paternally, maternally from Abraham. Very proud of my lineage, and a Middle Eastern name, and so just to conclude with that, so it's Syed. And then I really, really thank everybody, and I plan to continue joining the community. I do plan to contribute, and in any way also, and I really benefit just from confidence, and when I'm confident, that's when I do better, and that's really all that I really, really need, and also the continued advice of people like Matt and of course Dan and now John and everybody, and I highly appreciate that, and I think all I really need is confidence. Once I have confidence, then I build the United States, I build the world, and just continue improving things. I'm a citizen of the world, so.
Good. Thank you, Syed. Thank you, Syed. I appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen and ask one last question of you before we close and move into the breakout rooms. And the question is the question I'm going to ask everybody. So what is the one thing that 1 Million Cups can do for you, Syed?
Continue bringing Matt to the organization. Well, he's highly caffeinated. He's drank 50%, which means 500,000 cups of coffee. I'm joking, but just I think we should have more on site. I mean, I'm vaccinated, and I think we should have more on site at the Pioneer Square. But I know everybody's busy. But that's nice. I always enjoy that when I come, and I really like to contribute. And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel positive. And I don't know if I have the time to be an organizer. I'm a board member at an association, some other things that I'm involved in also. But what can 1 Million Cups do for me? Just continue to, I think, just draw more members in, and we'll just continue to grow. That's the best thing you can do for me, is just be bigger.